I haven't dealt with it. I mean, 3 of the people were my friends, and I knew some of the others, including the shooter, as acquaintances.
Joy Laking, who has spent a lifetime capturing her community in watercolors, still can't quite grasp the words for what she's feeling these days.
And I guess that's part of it, that I felt 3 of those friends, were murdered, alive one day and dead the next. It's just hard to fathom. And it seems like your whole premise about people is shaken.
Laking has spent hours painting the welcoming front doors of her community, where once they never locked them at night. Now, she says, many do. For her, the world has lost some of its color.
I love Nova Scotia and I love its beauty, and it just felt like I would never see any beauty again.
And she wonders about the future of Portapique, just across the river from her home, and the impact for the wider community beyond. Do you lock your door now?
Yeah.
So what are we seeing over there?
Just around the point is Portapique, okay?
Tom Taggart is the area's municipal councillor, one of those people trying to move forward from the tragedy and not let it define the community.
Because I've talked to a lot of those folks, residents up there, folks that sort of survived that night or woke up the next morning and found out that their neighbors had been murdered, and they absolutely don't want that notoriety. They want privacy, peacefulness and privacy. That's what they want.
And for some, they are moving ahead. Many of the homes owned by the victims have been sold. New families are moving into the area.
For the most part, either the victims didn't have family there, or their close friends and relatives have chosen not to return, and I can understand that. But there's no hesitancy by anybody to buy the land.
The province thought it best for it to buy the shooter's property, removing a stain on a community that is desperately trying to rally. Case in point, the Portapique Hall, now under renovation in hopes of giving this area a new focal point, a new start. But looming in the future is the public inquiry into the RCMP's handling of the mass shooting.
It's pretty raw yet, and the longer it goes on, the more it kind of festers, you know what I mean? And as much as it's going to be extremely difficult for this to be drug on forever, in the media, in whatever, they need to that has to happen for closure.
And then there are those who struggle to find the best way to commemorate the victims in all of this. Wayne Smith, whose stepson was killed in the rampage, built this memorial himself to assuage the grief.
You can't just throw it away, right? It'll always happen. It's just like a loved one, your parents when they die. But, they're more elderly, but these ones died tragically. They died before their time. We all stop. See, he even took his hat off. See what I mean? Like, that gives him comfort, you can talk, like, nobody talks today, right? They're afraid to talk, right? But you can be emotional around this and say, well, how are you dealing with it? How am I dealing with it?
And at the end of the day, that willingness by others to share the grief helps too.
It has been wonderful that the whole province has felt the pain. I mean, they don't feel it quite the same way if it isn't a place that when you live here, it's different. And a lot of Canadians, too, have shared the grief, and hopefully going forward it makes us all more human and caring.
Tom, you spent so much time in the last year covering this story in the communities that were affected. Tell us about the lasting impact of this.
Yeah, and grief counselors are telling people, of course, always they will have to live with the loss, but that with time they'll find different ways to process the grief, and hopefully some of that happened today. But there is something else they will have to live with. It used to be that this kind of gun violence always happened somewhere else. But in speaking to some of the people in the most affected communities, there's this nagging realization that it can happen here. It did happen here. And with that comes a real loss of innocence they say will never leave them. Ian?
Tom Murphy in Halifax tonight. Thank you.